Thank you very much for joining us today. With this webinar, we're going to be talking about how to take your AI ambitions into an actionable, pragmatic roadmap. Now, some of you know me, some of you don't. My name's Charlie Hyde. I'm a principal management consultant here at the Birchman Group. And one of the things I look at is AI. So in terms of what to expect from this particular session, we're going to talk a little bit around how you get AI right. And what sort of principles and foundations should you have in place so that you can then build on those and get the most out of it, and ultimately give you some tangible next steps to walk away with. So let's talk a little bit around getting it right, because most organizations do recognize that it's something that is important. But few people are really knowing how to get the most out of AI. And I think these stats really kind of speak for themselves. You know, there's 82% of organizations out there who say that AI is in the strategy, and maybe you here today are one of those. But then the number of organizations that then convert that it's in the strategy into actually doing the value mapping and the implementation is only 17%. But if you are part of that 17%, 92% of those see positive results. So although not as many organizations are actually making it happen, once you do make it happen, you unlock real value. And there's multiple ways to unlock value, but one of those, and perhaps the most commonly talked about use case or value proposition for AI, is its productivity benefits. And 81% of employees who are using AI are reporting that they are having improved productivity. So there's huge potential here. And I know that you guys recognize that, because you wouldn't be here today if you didn't. But this is about then going to the next stage and actually building on those principles to build that success. So from a Birchman perspective, we talk about AI and building up that AI with four kind of underlying key principles. The first is around iterations. So it's easy to try to jump into the world of AI because it is a big world and try to do everything yesterday. But actually, AI can be very complex, and it takes a blend of the change management side of things, data, and technology. So it might feel counterproductive, but actually when you start small and scale up iteratively and work to deploy value as quickly as possible through the smallest possible iteration, then you can start to build on those foundations, learn as you go, and scale up your use case in a way that is safe for your organization, for your technology architecture, for your data landscape, and build up over time. The second part is around robust change management. So we often think about AI as a techie thing and a data thing, and sometimes we lose sight of the people. And that's where actually robust change management is really important. Because, you know, talking to people and talking to organizations who are implementing AI, actually fear of change is almost on steroids when it comes to AI, because it's a very evocative topic. And it certainly was in 2024. As some of the use cases consolidate, some of that fear changes, and ultimately people do have a fear that their jobs are going to be replaced, and that fear looks different at different levels of the organization and different demographics within the organization. So we can't make AI a change that happens to people. It has to be a change that happens with people. But this is where having that change management strategy in place first is really, really important. And really, number 1 and 2 go together. Because if you start to try to deploy use cases without bringing the people on the journey, not only are you going to get some resistance that will slow down your ability to unlock value from AI, you will not bring people on the journey and upskill them in the right way to be able to set yourself up for long-term success. Then, of course, there is the infrastructure. So this is a bit more, on the techie side of things. And I'm sure that there are varying degrees of technical understanding in general, and also in the context of AI. Walking into this session, we're not going to bombard you with technical. We're going to keep it quite high level. But it is important that you recognize that to really get the most out of AI, you have to have the right infrastructure in place. And this means things like storage and computing power. So processing lots of large data sets requires a lot of oomph, and it's important that you have assessed your architecture to make sure that you have the right infrastructure in place, and also understand and have done a bit of cost benefit analysis on understanding what the cost of that looks like versus the benefits that you get from your AI adoption journey. Which leads us nicely into that fourth principle around having KPIs in place. And AI doesn't and shouldn't exist in a vacuum. Certainly there are cases and places where people have been introducing AI for the sake of saying we're doing AI, and they start to build it up in a vacuum, and ultimately it becomes a vanity project. But for you to really unlock the most out of adopting AI, you have to put the value that you get out of AI in your wider business context and make sure that any AI implementation is traceable to your wider business goals. I see AI as an enabler, much like we talked about, cloud as an enabler, and agile delivery models as an enabler. AI is no different, and therefore it doesn't and shouldn't exist as a thing in and of itself. It exists within that wider context of your organization. Now, when you're starting on your AI adoption journey, actually taking a moment to assess these four principles and make sure that before you start any implementation, before you start buying any products, before you start trying to set up a team to build your own things, you have thought about all of these things and you've thought about them collectively and how they interact with each other. And we can drill this down into a little bit more detail here. So you can then take those four principles and turn them into pillars. A technology pillar. So this is about, we talked about the infrastructure, but also the wider technology. And these all sit together. So do you have the right skills in your technology team? So bleeding a little bit into change management here as well. Do you have the right skills? Do you have the right things in place to be able to support you? One of the things that I'm often asked when it comes to technology and AI is around, should we be building in-house or should we be looking for an off-the-shelf product? And how is the best way for us to get started here? And my personal view on this is it depends, because I'm a consultant and every question has it depends. But really what it depends on is how mature your teams are, how mature your products are. Are you trying to put AI onto a legacy product, or are you trying to put it on the latest version of whatever it is? Because although at Birchman we're an SAP partner, we're not exclusively SAP, and we've been exploring use cases outside of the SAP ecosystem. And so it really depends on some of the maturity of your applications and how those applications are integrated. And it depends on how much you want to invest in building those technical capabilities for in-house development. My view is actually a blend of both is the best place to start. So looking for something that you can take straight off the shelf and unlock value from it in an iterative way, but also something that has the flexibility to be able to extend it if you need to and want to for your particular architectural landscape. Coming back to SAP, one of the things that is coming in 2025 for Joule, which hopefully most of you will know that Joule is SAP's kind of flagship AI product, Joule, they're actually going to be extending for partners to be able to build extensions onto Joule. So that is a great example of you take something off the shelf, but it has that flexibility to extend it as and when and where you need it. When we talk about change management, there's multiple layers to this. Some of this is around getting executive buy-in. So there'll be some of you sitting on this call today who are getting a lot of pressure from your C-suite and from your board to do and start doing something with AI. We need to be competitive, do AI, and they're sort of perhaps bought into the concept, but need a bit more help to understand what is the art of the possible, so you get the right type of top-down buy-in. Then there's also doing a skills mapping and understanding what skills do you have, what skills do you need in the context of your technology and your data to be able to set you up for success throughout this journey. Then there's also thinking about the communication side of training. How are we going to position this AI journey in such a way that people come on that journey with us rather than resisting? There's a little bit then around data, and data is super important when we talk about AI. The Palantir CEO, Alex Karp, said in September last year that the real next challenge for AI is for it to break out of being a high school experiment. And the way that you do that is that AI adds value only in the context. And when you say context in an organization, that means it's data. Ultimately, it comes back to rubbish in, rubbish out. So what AI is really good at is being able to crunch very large volumes of data and data sets in an efficient way to be able to provide you insight around patterns, predictions, and for you then to be able to take those into your broader business goals and make data-driven decisions. But if your underlying data is not in the right place, so it's not integrated in the right way, you haven't got clean data, then you will struggle to get the most value out of AI. So if you take nothing away from today, I would say take only this. If you want to go on an AI journey, you need to go on a data journey first. And then you bring all of these three things together through your governance. And there's certainly been a lot in 2024, and I think we'll continue to see this as AI goes not necessarily wider, but deeper into organizations around making sure that you've got the right guardrails in place to protect your organization from, data, but also about being able to operate ethically. And the great use case here is using AI to help with recruitment, making sure that we're limiting bias in some of the underlying large language models and open data sets that we can get access to, and making sure that the algorithms that are in place to actually execute that sorry, just forgot that for a second there, to execute those operations are not having bias built into them. So there's lots of things to think about. And this is why instead of leaping into AI and doing everything, we suggest that you take a small use case, but think deeply about these four things on this slide here. And it's important that you bring together the different subject matter expertise across your organization and have someone who can act as an AI champion. Now, that's not a formal job title that you have to go and recruit for. It is a person or a small group of people who have the understanding of both your organization and of that broader AI industry and context and what's going on in the space, and can really champion the ethical and fair and value add use of AI in your organization. So keeping to our theme of fours, the next part is around thinking about enablers. So AI is an enabler for your organization in itself, but within that, there are certain adoption enablers that will help to smooth out the path of introducing AI into your organization. So this first one is around AI awareness, and this is also, part of what you think about under your change management. So it's important that people have a fair understanding of what AI actually is. Now, if you attended the SAP user forum, I think it would be last year, middle of last year, actually the first session that we did on AI was actually just baselining people's understanding of AI. Certainly, in sort of the middle of last year, there was a lot of misunderstanding around what AI is. And I still, hear it occasionally now. Someone said to me, "Oh, you know about AI, so you're going to know what room we're in today." Pardon? There is a lot of misunderstanding around that. To actually bring people onto a common understanding of what AI is and how, AI, machine learning, deep learning, how all these things work together. Now, we actually have a kind of quick reference guide and a bit of a glossary, which I think we've shared over LinkedIn, but which we can also make available to you guys to help. You don't have to go and reinvent the wheel here. We have something that you can use to share within your organizations to help with this. But actually, when you bring people onto, albeit a very high level, but common understanding of what AI is, you start to reduce the fear. Because what brings around resistance from change management, it's generally not, laziness or not actually wanting to change. It's fear. And so if we tackle this one first, we can start to really smooth out the path. When we talked about, iterations and iterative gradual expansion of AI use cases, there's a lot of kind of overlap with some of the agile development concepts around iterative delivery, and each iteration delivering a discrete unit of value for the organization. Now, this is not me saying you should all go and do an agile transformation, definitely not. But what I am saying is there are lots of agile principles and agile concepts that you can take to help smooth the path, whether that is in your technical, your operations, or your wider business teams. And sometimes actually using some of that kind of agile development terminology or agile delivery terminology can actually help along here. Also, part of change management and mapping out your skills is about promoting cross-functional awareness. T-shaped people are some of the best people in an organization. It is important that people have their specialism, to have the real depth of knowledge, to be able to bring your organization on that AI journey. But no specialism exists within a vacuum. So being able to give people some kind of basic cross-functional AI training. So, you might be a developer, but you have a broader understanding of how what you're doing here ties up to the wider KPIs. And likewise, that people perhaps on the business side have an understanding of when we talk about what the development teams are doing. They're not just imagining people sitting behind computers with colorful keyboards. They have a reasonable understanding of what those people are actually doing to help them both then be able to join up and set realistic targets in terms of defining those iterations and defining the outcomes that you want to achieve and how you're going to get there in a way that delivers value but is also cost effective. But then the final point is not a contradiction. Even though I've just said we need cross-functional awareness, actually, AI is a space that is moving really quickly. The technology is advancing at a very rapid rate. And we saw that definitely in 2024. I think we will continue to see that in 2025, but it's going to look a little bit different. In 2024, a lot of the conversations that certainly we were having was about the breadth of use cases. Now we're having conversations about the depth of the use cases. But don't be fooled by the fact that just because it's not as broad, the innovation is still as rapid, but it's just in a slightly different direction. So it is important that in the right places, you do have those pockets of expertise who really do have that true depth, and they can also help to do that cross-functional teaching. But you do have those people who have, whether that is technical AI skills, as well as things like ethical AI expertise. And when you bring all of these things together, that's when your journey really starts to consolidate. And so we start to think about, okay, we've talked quite theoretically about the principles and some of the enablers, but how do we actually put pen to paper and start on that journey itself? So the very, very first place you need to start is thinking about your needs and goals. And this is not about saying, okay, I've heard about AI. What can it do for us? Really, you want to be looking at what are our overall business strategic goals, or our IT strategic goals, and how can AI help us get there? We've had quite a few conversations overall where people say, I want to do AI. How do I do it? But it's the wrong conversation to have. It's the other way around. What does your organization want to achieve this year? Now, how does AI help you get there? And it's really important that you do that bit first. Otherwise, you're at risk of having a really nice AI solution that's a vanity project. But once you've got that, it's then thinking about your data readiness. So you know where you want to go. You know that AI can help you in a particular area. Now you need to make sure that your data is ready to support you on that journey. So this is making sure that you've got clean data, you've identified all the sources that you need to gather that data from, that they're pulling into the right central place, that they're integrated in the right way, and you have the underlying infrastructure to be able to support the storage and the processing of that data, and you understand what is the investment that your organization is able to make in this particular area. And if you look and you think, what, our data isn't in the best place, park your AI journey. Focus on your data. Because if you continue to try to walk down AI whilst bringing with you suboptimal data strategy, architecture, data cleanliness, you are going to fall over sooner or later. So if you see this, stop. Stop talking about AI and start focusing on cleaning your data. Now, the good news is that you don't need to clean everything right off the bat, because we're talking about starting small and scaling smart. So we can apply the 80-20 rule. We can just say, okay, this is the data that we need to get the most out of our AI use case, and we have to be pragmatic about that. And we're going to focus just on cleaning that part first. And then we can start, as we scale up, to then bring all of that, subsequent phases along the way. So it doesn't mean if your data's not in a great spot, you can't do AI at all, but you just need to focus on that 80-20. What 20% of your data is going to give you 80% of your value? Let's go clean that first, and then we build up iteratively after that. We always would recommend you start with a pilot or a proof of concept. But in doing this, it's really important that you start with a clear objective of what you're trying to test the feasibility of as part of that proof of concept, as part of that pilot, and then put some metrics around how do we know if this was successful for us, and also a definition of done. How do we know when we're done with a proof of concept? We've worked with various clients in the past, not just in AI, where proof of concepts can be too big, and then you struggle to see the value out of it, and you say, oh well, that's because whatever the thing you were trying to test doesn't work. The risk is you do the same for AI. So you really want to constrain it as tight as you can, and by doing that, that also means if you do come across a challenge with your data, you can then be ready to clean that quite quickly and get moving again, because you've got that nice constrained, narrow use case. You can do all three of those things we've just discussed whilst doing your kind of educate and reassure change management in parallel. And the earlier you start, the better. It does take time for people to get their heads around the AI. It feels like the scary thing that people don't understand, that's coming for their jobs, and we're all going to be taken over by robots. And whilst that is to some extent a little facetious, it is also how people are genuinely feeling on the ground. I've definitely spoken to people who are afraid that their job is going to be replaced. From a Birchman perspective, we don't preach to replace people with AI. We really get the most out of AI when we augment it with our people. If you're using AI because you want to make people redundant, I don't think you're going to get the best out of AI, and you're certainly not getting the best out of your teams. Instead, what you're looking for is those interlock points. How do I use AI to get the most out of my people? And how do the skill set and the business knowledge that my people have help me get the most out of AI? These are not two diametrically opposed things. They are completely symbiotic. However, it is your responsibility as a change agent to help people to understand that, because that isn't the first place that a lot of people's minds are going. And you can complement all this with a skills assessment. If you don't have the right players on the board, you're going nowhere. And you need that right balance. You do need some AI specialists. You also need some specialists in the business area that you are looking to implement AI. And you want to get a kind of balance between helping to upskill the people that you have. Maybe as part of this augmentation, their job's not being replaced, but their job is going to change. It's going to look different. Maybe how they execute their job looks different. Maybe their job is now going to be less of the actual processing of data or analysis that they were doing before. Now it's about the interpretation. So you have to be able to skill people, because you want to retain people in your organization because they bring huge value. But what you need out of somebody today and what you need out of somebody tomorrow when you've introduced AI into the space may well look different. So you need to think about, where do we want to get people to, and how do we need to empower them on the way? And some of that is around change management. Some of that is around training. And some of that may need some external partnerships to help you bridge that gap. So let's talk really tangible now. We talked about the sort of things that you need to do, but how long do they take you to do it? And how long can you expect before you get started? Certainly when people talk about AI, they seem to want to go from talking about AI to having something set up in a week. And that's, to really set yourself up for long-term success, is not achievable. So this is obviously a theoretical roadmap, and depending on the size of your proof of concept or your use case, this would have a bit of flexibility. But this is roughly, if we were to work with you to help you set up AI, how we would approach this in terms of setting up that preparation phase. And this is super important, right? It can feel frustrating, particularly for execs who just want to say, oh, well, we just want to do AI. It can feel frustrating to say, cool, well, we'll start with this, and in a month, we'll start the pilot. And they go, what? No, start it yesterday. But actually, hopefully what you've taken from what we've just talked about is why doing all of this is really important, and giving it the right space to be able to do it. And this is a theoretical example roadmap. So you might say that actually this is too slow. This is too fast, and we need to take a little bit longer. But this is a fair representation of, if you have a constrained use case, a tight use case, how you can go from recognizing or looking at your business goals to having something set up in 5 weeks. It doesn't need to take 6 months, but it's going to take more than 6 days. Now, I've purposely left the bit that I think you all joined for to the last, because what I've wanted to prove up until now is it's not just about looking for the areas that you can deploy AI in. It's about setting up all that pre-work to set yourself up for success first. But of course, I am going to give you the thing that you all wanted, really. So these are the sort of 5 areas that in Birchman we have been exploring how we help clients in these particular areas. And these are the areas that we broadly recognize are the best use cases to start with. I mean, reporting and analytics, this is a great example, and also can tie in with SAP as well if you're using SAP. So SAP have been introducing Insights, which is Just Ask, which is a replacement for Insights. And this is a great example of where you can use AI to use natural language to query your data and get those insights out of it. And look, SAP is not the only place where you can do that, but actually being able to crunch those large data sets and being able to get meaningful insight out of your data in a natural language way is a great place where AI can help you. When I'm talking about AI ops, I'm thinking about things like incident management and resolution. So there is some great products out there where we've explored introducing an AI ops platform, which is helping with the detection of incidents, but then also learns some of the recovery steps and can introduce those and then actually write the first iteration of the incident report off the back of all of those insights and all of those alerts that it's got, and deliver that back to incident managers so that within defined thresholds, you don't have to call the incident manager out. You can actually train the platform to do it for you and write the the first draft of the root cause documentation and the incident report, and then you bring the incident manager in to deal with only the very, very highest priority, and you can then get them focusing on that level up rather than getting too stuck in the weeds. This is where digital assistants also help. Great opportunity to augment those digital assistants with your teams. When I talk about digital assistants, I don't mean things like Copilot and ChatGPT, even though, yes, they are helpful. And, we've seen some great implementations of Microsoft's Copilot. What I'm really thinking of here is digital assistants that have been built with a particular area in mind, a particular business area and use case in mind. And where you really get the most out of digital assistants is not so much the general large language models, like ChatGPT and Gemini, but actually when you're able to query your own documentation, your own processes. So things like HR digital assistants are a great example of this. And then predictive AI. So as much as being able to crunch data and give you insight, it can also help crunch data and help you to identify patterns and look to how you can then use those patterns to make better data-driven business decisions. And of course, SAP have a variety of kind of, AI solutions embedded in their out-of-the-box products, but Joule is the absolute flagship product. And we're quite excited to see that it's being opened up for partners to be able to extend the capability, which I think is going to extend the range and variety of use cases where we can actually apply Joule. So all in all, I think 2025 is a very exciting year for AI. I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation in terms of use cases. And I think that's a great opportunity for organizations who are starting their AI adoption journey. I think 2024 felt quite overwhelming. Now we're starting to see that consolidation and see some proof of value from various organizations. It makes 2025 a little bit easier. But if you're not doing the right pre-work, then sooner or later you're going to struggle. And that's the real secret. It's getting that pre-work right. And so we have, I think, about 20 minutes now to do a bit of Q&A. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen so I can see you guys. And I open the floor to questions.
Hiya, Charlie.
Hello.
So I think we've had this discussion before about data first, AI second. How do you convince people that they have to clean their data first? Because it always feels like a bit of a carrot and stick loop for me. People
Yep.
really, really want the shiny new toy, but they don't want to do the work. How do
Yep.
you quickly prove the value in a small area to get them to sort of see the value of doing it everywhere? Because we've had S4 for about 8 years now, and I can tell you that our data is shocking.
I appreciate the honesty. I think there's a couple of ways you can approach this. So one way is you take your use case and you let it fail. You let them feel the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that always feels a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because you don't want to do something that you know is going to fail. But if you're really struggling, and this is absolute last resort, right? If you're really, really struggling, set it all up, and you document all the risks, and you document everything as part of the upfront piece of the POC, and you show the art of the possible.
Yeah.
And then you actually let them feel the pain. But then where you have to be really ready to jump in when they feel that pain is that you then make them understand that it is the data, and it's not, oh well, AI doesn't work. That's the risk of that approach. But we've seen it work, and it's a bit extreme, but it does work. The other way to do this is you break down your use case even more, and you then pick an even smaller bit of data, and you actually end up running 2 POCs. You run one where your data is clean, so that you need to have 2 slightly different use cases, but at some degree of parity to be able to make it apples to apples. And you make it super constrained, so you have a fighting chance of being able to clean that data within a reasonable time frame. And then you run 2 POCs in parallel. One where you've cleaned the data, one where you haven't, and then you let the output speak for itself.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello. Hello, I've got a question. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Awesome. So, yeah, my question is about how do we create that roadmap within a business? A lot of businesses have got a lot of legacy systems that maybe were really really attached to, but they were developed a long time ago and need to be modernized and migrated. How do we create that roadmap within a business that, in order to do the really, really cutting edge stuff that involves AI, we really need to start migrating off some of our legacy systems that aren't really designed to support the modern way of working, especially in terms of infrastructure?
Yeah, so I think everything comes back to your business goals. And what does the value of migrating off those systems and enabling you to use AI mean? So, for example, is the business goal that we want to realize some efficiency savings? Is the business goal we want to increase revenue in this particular area, or our profitability in this particular area? So tie everything back to the business goals, and then to say, okay, well, for us to achieve this is how the IT side needs to click in. This is how the reporting and the data and analytics side needs to click in. So everything should start and end with the business goals and how you're measuring achieving those business goals, and everything underneath that is an enabler. I know that is somewhat easier said than done, but this is where these sort of strat sessions are really important, and having representation, from your data analytics team, from your IT teams, as well as the business teams, are really important.
Yeah.
Any more questions? No, I think that kind of concludes it then. So Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. I think that was really valuable, and I think that's one really good thing to think about. The question that you asked earlier in the webinar, you said, what does your organisation want to achieve this year, and how can AI help you? So I think that's a really valuable thing to think about. And then of course your data readiness, and obviously if it's not ready, then park AI. So yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. I think that was really valuable, and hopefully you all felt the value too. And if you have any questions, please do reach out to us, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the next one. And yes, Barry, absolutely, we can share the slides if that's okay with Charlie.
Please do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll share the slides, we'll share the recording as well, and also the AI glossary as well that Charlie mentioned at the beginning. Perfect. Well, thank you all for attending and for all staying on as well. That's a good sign of Charlie's great presenting skills. So yeah, appreciate everyone attending, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very
Very
much.
good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great
Bye.
day ahead.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.